Just listen. Where you go?
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. Oh, sorry, I cut you off. Good morning, everyone. No, I didn't do it. Usually our kids shout, good morning. They'll probably do it at the announcement time, and then you'll see. But hey, my name's Katie. I'm the worship director here. Super glad that those of you who have joined us in person, always good to be with you. And those of you who are watching online, hello to you as well. We would love to get started in worship this morning by singing. So if you're able to rise or stand, we would love for you to do that. And I'll say a prayer to kind of get us settled in, and then we'll sing together. God, thank you for always drawing us in together, and especially now during this resurrection season, in a time of transition for many of us. God, help us be attuned to whatever you're doing in our lives, both individually and as a community, the ways that you are bringing us into and through resurrection and onward toward new things. Help us continue to learn what it means to be a thriving, healthy community that looks out for each other, takes care of each other, sinks more deeply into our faith together so that we can continue to grow goodness in this world. Amen.
Sorry, I had to turn our daughter into a bat. She really wanted to show off this bat costume today.
If you can't tell, kids are very, very welcome here, even little bats. There is life over death. There is newborn breath. Resurrection power lives within. All our hope is them. Ooh. Grace, all will find their way past shame and fear. All our peace is here. God of love, inspire us and move us if we stay. God of hope, keep showing us the life, the truth, the way. There's a holy breath working through our mess. All our wrongs cannot restrain the life it gives. There is hope of grace, new with every day. Sin is lost where love is found and darkness ends. And God gave life so that we may live. God of love, inspire us and move us if we stay. God of hope, keep showing us the light, the truth, the way. doing great this morning. Actually, you can stay standing. We're going to go ahead and greet each other. We do this thing every week called Connection Point. We just want to make sure everybody gets a little bit of a chance to get to know each other, even if you're like, oh, this is super awkward, I'm new, or just social anxiety. I don't know. I know, it's tough. Or if you're introverted, I get it. But we want to make sure that we're not just coming, like partaking in a service and leaving. We want to build community. So we'll take a few minutes to introduce yourself to someone new or someone that's not familiar to you. We'll give you something to talk about. And this week, actually, you don't have to talk about this, but if you want something to talk about, a recurring dream that you've had, good or bad, or anything in between, go ahead and go meet someone new and share, and we'll start back in a few minutes.
All right, you can go ahead and find your seats. Okay, I am honestly a little bit nervous about this morning, given what I have heard out there earlier this morning. Good morning. Good morning. It is really good to be with you this morning. My name is Jeremy. I'm the pastor here of the Grove, Cottage Grove. My first announcement is going to be a reminder. We have earplugs at the back. If at any point during the service you need this because of music or any other reason, they're at the back and available to you. It is so good to be with you this morning. We are a new church that exists to grow goodness, and so my hope is that you're being with us, eardrums and all, is simply a nurturing, healing, wholeness, and beauty in your life today. A couple things as we get going. Hopefully, as you came in this morning, you got one of these, our worship handout. As you look on the inside, this has some of the most important information that you're going to want to know about the church, why we exist, what our values are, how to give to make sure we're able to continue to do this thing that we all find so meaningful. Also on the inside, there's what we call the worship insert. So if you are with us first time or the second time or the 100th time and you want to let us know that you're here with us today, you can fill this out and drop it in a basket at the back of the worship center later on in the service. Also on the back, there are opportunities, again, if this is your first time, second time, or 100th time, if there's information that you want from us or information that you want to give to us. This is a place where you can do that. So if there are any things that you want more information about, there's a bunch of check boxes on the back. If you have prayer requests, things that you want us to be joining you in praying about, you can indicate that there. And again, drop those in the baskets at the back of the worship center at any time. Then at the back of the worship handout, we have our 3 announcements. These are the things that we've really been trying to key in on. The thing to know is that we will hit all of the detailed information on these at the end of the service, but if you're curious about any of them now, you can scan those QR codes or go to the websites listed to get all of the information now. We wrap up with an announcement about kids. As you can tell, kids are highly valued members of this community. We don't just say that, we mean that, and we want to be able to create the space for them to be welcome participants within our worship. So within worship, kids are highly welcome to be in this space, and we try to make it possible for them to function well in this space. So in the backs of the chairs, we have different activities for them to be able to do in their seats. We obviously have this wiggle space over here if they need to be moving their bodies. We also have age-appropriate programming that happens out there during the service as well, however. We have a staff nursery, which is available for kids who are 6 weeks old through 3 years. So if at any point you need to take advantage of that nursery, that is out there. And then for the older kids who are ages 4 through 5th grade, we have Grove Kids, where they are able to participate in a bunch of play-based activities. The only thing that we ask is that if this is their first time going to any of those programs, that you fill out one of these, which is a registration card. I believe they should also be in the backs of the chairs. You can fill this out and send this with them wherever they were going. This is just so that we can know who they are. Names are important. If there's anything important for us to know about them, if they have any medical concerns or anything, so we can know that. And then also, if we need to get in touch with you during the service, your contact information so we can do that. I believe that's it for announcements. So with that, kids, you got the week off last week. If you are excited to go to Grove Kids, we're going to sing you out to do just that.
Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world. Every color, shape, and type, they are precious in His sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. Nice. Ooh, those kids are hyped today, y'all. Thanks for sticking with us through the loud moments. We always say it's better to hear loud kids in church than no kids in church. Well, hey, we're going to do something a little bit different today. Instead of music at this point, I want to share with you another written work in a poem as a part of our worship today. This is by Joe Davis, who you've probably heard me talk about multiple times. I love him. He is a local person. He is an author, speaker, performer, both musical performer and spoken word poetry. He's like super talented, and he's a really good guy and someone that really loves and believes in the institution of the church and redeeming a lot of the institution of the church that needs fixing, that needs healing. Like, he totally gets it. He's at another really awesome congregation in Minneapolis called New City. But he keeps putting out these amazing books of poetry, and they've been so inspiring to me personally, but also I love including them in worship because It's not just about music and preaching. So I want to share with you, I think we've actually done this before, but this is, since we are talking about, in our Sunday school series today, talking about the church, like what is the point of the church, what's it all about, what is our purpose, all of that. He has a whole poem about that. And so I thought it would be cool to read that today, and then we'll follow this with a prayer exercise together. So this is Be the Church, a reminder of the world we are co-creating. The church is dying, but the church will live again. When we pass on life-giving culture and traditions, not death-dealing weapons, but our best healing instruments. You can't be unchurched or overchurched when you're the church. God's work is our work. Don't have to say goodbye to high church or low church if we hold space for highs and lows of all those who soul search. And don't turn them away when they say their soul hurts. When the body is a temple, everything is a ritual. Re-embody and remember the truth you already know. Each moment we breathe, we become ecclesia. When we meet wherever the Spirit is leading us. If the Bible is a library of letters and metaphors and not a book of facts, what would it look like if we loved and lived like our life was a book of acts? Instead, we took an axe to hack chapters, burned green pastures, and made pastors into slave masters. Our first love is calling us back to practice. Can we remove barriers to hope so we all have access? Plan A was always Plan B, to be the change, to be the church, to be God's hands and feet, to be God's justice standing in the street. They can kill a revolutionary, but can't kill a revolution. They can't stop our movement if we always keep it moving. When we remember how we, the church, are called to be the church, we'll clothe and feed people who need the people of the church. The kingdom can be within us, and heaven can be on earth. The church is living and breathing. The church is birthing and bursting with new life and new meaning. The church is rising and thriving and will flourish beyond four walls. When we're building beyond the building, a world that works for all. Actually wrote prayer practice that we can try to follow up this poem. Now, I will tell you that he suggests you get with a partner and you actually, like, at different points in the prayer, touch your partner. Listen, I'm an extrovert, but even I have limits, okay? I'm not going to make you do that. So we're going to do this. It's a body prayer, and we're going to do it individually. We're going to sort of pray over different parts of our body, and you can, if you feel comfortable, actually do that. Here, I'll guide you through it. Okay. So you're going to repeat these words, just repeat the movements. I'll pray these words over you. You're going to start by placing your hands on your head and pray. May my mind be the mind of Christ. Place your hands over your eyes and pray. May my eyes be the face of Christ in all those I encounter. Or may my eyes see the face of Christ in all those I encounter. Place your hands over your ears and pray. May my ears hear the cries of God's children. Place your hands over your mouth and pray. May my mouth speak hope and truth with power and love. And place your hands out, palms up. May my hands bring healing and justice to all I touch. And if you can reach, put your hands on your feet. May my feet carry the good news wherever I go. Now you can place your hands on your shoulders and try cross over like this, because this is for your heart. May my heart be filled with the love of God. Go in peace and serve the Lord and be the church. Amen.
So I don't often ask for crowd participation, but I'm genuinely curious. We did the connection point question a few minutes earlier, and we asked the question about recurring dreams. Anybody willing to share a recurring dream? Don't go into full description, but one or two words. Yeah. Things are really good with your kids. Oh, I hope for that dream for you, Grant. Dang it, Grant. You got me emotional like that. Anybody else? Recurring dream? Oh. Did you take a picture of where it was when you first parked? That's the trick. Yeah. One other. Anybody else? Recurring dream? Okay. Did anybody, if you're willing to raise your hands, did anybody say one of their recurring dreams was around school? Okay, 3 people. How many of you, even if you didn't say it, even though you're grown adults, it's been years, maybe decades even, since you have been in school, how many of you have had, maybe not super regularly, but have had dreams or nightmares about school? Yeah. So this is actually a super, I wouldn't say it's normal, but super common thing in dream studies. This is something that adults, even though it has been years and sometimes decades since they've actually been in school, often have recurring dreams around school. There's you're late for class, or it's test day and you didn't study at all, or you show up for the test and it's in a different language, or you show up for the test and then you look down and you don't have any pants on. These are apparently really common things, a really common recurring dream in lots and lots of people. And the type of people who study this type of stuff and try to explain it think that it actually has to do with two different really common things coming together, and it's the nature of school itself and then the nature of dreams themselves and how they function. So there's school. We all have this shared experience of school. We were in school for at least 13 years, some of us longer than that. And school is this thing that shapes our foundational understanding of the world and how it works. Yeah, there's the actual education part where we're learning math and we're learning to read and we're learning science and all of that stuff. But it's also shaping us emotionally and relationally. It helps us to understand how to get things done. It helps us understand time limits on things. It helps us to understand what it's like to be judged or to receive a grade or a positive or not so positive response to something. It shapes how we understand how we meet people and build relationships with people, and sometimes that's in a positive way, and often it's not in a positive way. And so we have this thing, this shared experience that has shaped so much of how we understand our world. And then we also have dreams. And really, people don't know why we have dreams. But the people who study this and try to explain why we have dreams often think that this is how our brains understand and process our memories, but then categorize new things. And so dreams, sometimes it seems, are our way to, as we're experiencing something in our real world, try to re-understand and recategorize those new things within our current understandings of the world. And so as we have new stressors that come in, new anxieties that come in, new relationships that come in, new people who might be judging us or giving us some sort of grade coming into our lives, new pressures that have to do with timelines and expectations, all of that, one of the things that our brains often go back to is that foundational space where we learn all of that stuff, throws us right back into school for all of the positive and all of the negative things that has presented us over the years. There's another type of school that some of you might have also been through that I grew up going through, and that is Sunday school. How many of you at some point participated in some sort of Sunday school? Sunday school was really big in the 80s and 90s. I'm sure there's churches that are kind of stuck in the 80s and 90s that are still doing it these days. But for me, Sunday school, and it may have been the case for many of you who grew up in church and went to Sunday school were these classes that we would go to. It was primarily meant for kids, but adults often did it as well. These were classes that were either after or before some of the worship services. And they were intentionally short, but they were really direct. And this was like your deep dive into the most important things about God, the Bible, and faith. But because they were really direct and really short, they often had really simple ways of understanding and defining some of those foundational things about God, the Bible, and faith in general. And sometimes the really simple ways of explaining it, explaining things in general, can be really helpful because it's simple and memorable, and it allows you to take something away. And then oftentimes, because it's simple and short and really low-hanging fruit, you're walking away with not great things. But you're walking away with something foundational that is memorable and that you're going to be able to carry with you and do something with. So as we thought about, well, what might we talk about after Easter, we came to this idea of, well, maybe we want to do Sunday school. And every time that I have talked about this over the last couple weeks, I have made sure to let you all know who have a background in Sunday school, we're not putting together a new educational program, okay, that we're going to force you all to go through. Instead, we said, well, you know, we are a church. There are certain things that as a church, as the Grove, United Methodist Church in Cottage Grove, Minnesota, there are certain things that we believe and that we do that are important to us and kind of help us stand out. And sometimes it's important just to take a step back and acknowledge those things and to go into detail about them and make them, present them in an understandable way so that you can do something with them. And so that's what we're going to be doing over the next several weeks, is we're going to be looking at a handful of things that we as a church, the Grove United Methodist Church in Cottage Grove, Minnesota, things that we believe and do and why, and hopefully present them in such a way that if you were to have a Sunday school notebook, you can jot down notes and then walk away with them and do something with them. So today we are getting started with the most fundamental thing. What is that fundamental thing? The big word for it is ecclesiology. Ecclesiology is a fancy word for the study of the church. Ecclesia means the church. I'll get into that in just a second. And then ology is the study of the church. So the most fundamental thing that we believe and do as a church is we kind of do the church, right? But before we go deeper into that, we kind of need to define what we mean by the church, right? The church has a lot of different definitions and a lot of different ways that people use that word, church, right? Some of the things that people say about the church or how they use the word the church, these are probably some of the things that you say or how you use the word the church. We talk about the church being a place that you go. So you might say, kids, we are going to the church to drop off some donations. The church being this location, a place, okay? That's one way we could define the church. There's also this idea of the church being a program, and it happens often on Sunday mornings. You may have said to your kids this morning, get dressed or we're going to be late for church. That program happens at a place, church building maybe, but it's also the program. You say you're going to church. You're talking about that program that happens at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning. And I'm not going to say that those definitions are wrong. Words change over time, and the way that we use words and define words change over time. And so saying church can refer to a place, and it can refer to a program. But at its beginning, at its most fundamental, the church is actually meant to be thought of as a people. The word church, I had alluded to this just a couple minutes ago, comes from the Greek word ecclesia, which originally meant a gathering of people. And in the early years following Jesus' death and resurrection, and then as he left his followers started gathering, and they lived in a Greek-speaking culture, and so they talked about these gatherings as an ecclesia. This is the way they described themselves. And then they started expanding what it meant to be the ecclesia, this gathered people of people who are committed to following the teachings of this guy named Jesus. And so what did that gathering of people look like? What did it involve? What did it require of them? Well, we hear that in the story after Jesus departs them. And this story comes to us in the book of Acts. This is in chapter 2, verses 42 through 47, and it'll be up here on the screen behind me. They, Jesus' followers, were devoting themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Reverential awe came over everyone, and many wonders and miraculous signs came about by the apostles. All who believed were together and held everything in common, and they began selling their property and possessions and distributing the proceeds to everyone as anyone had need. Every day they continued to gather together by common consent in the temple courts, breaking bread from house to house, sharing their food with glad and humble hearts, praising God and having the goodwill of all the people. And the Lord was adding to their number every day those who were being saved. So from the get-go, right after Jesus leads them and then kind of hands everything off to them, their primary focus is not on a place. They don't have a place. They don't have a building that they are regularly meeting in. They have places and buildings where they are meeting, but they don't have this building with a big cross on it, right? They're also not primarily focused on a program that they are regularly going to and being entertained by. They're really not also trying to start their own religion. They're going back to the temple. These were Jewish people following a Jewish rabbi, going about their everyday lives, and one of the things that they did together was go to the temple. So those things eventually came along, a place and a program, and it helped them to do the main thing that they were doing. But the main thing was being a people. They were gathering together. They were connecting with one another and connecting with God. They were becoming a better version of themselves by coming together and listening to these teachings and trying to figure out what that meant for their lives. They cared for one another. They sold things so that they could better care for one another and make sure everybody had what they needed. And most importantly, it spread. They brought that joy and that generosity that was in their community out to the community that was surrounding them. The community took notice, and the community responded to that. That is what the church from its earliest days fundamentally was about a gathered people that were doing those things together. So why is that important? One, it's important to know just because, but it's also important to know because that's often not how church has been defined or experienced. I mentioned the place, I mentioned the program, but there's two other P words that I think of that often have come to define the church. One of them being pointless. Many people, even people who have grown up in the church, have found it to be a thing that you just go to because you have been trained to go to it. And after a while, that becomes unnecessary. So church can be pointless. But then also for many, many people, church has not even just been pointless, it's been a problem. We could go through a laundry list of different things and different ways that the church has been a problem for so many and many people. Just a really short list. Church has been really good over 2,000 years at things like anti-Semitism and imperialism and sexism and starting crusades and starting wars and supporting slavery and homophobia and transphobia and abuse and boredom. Boredom doesn't compute with all those other things, but like that's true too. And that's just like the high level things. That's not to mention all of the individual experiences of millions of people over thousands of years, ways in which the church has done them wrong and has become a problem. Many of you are not only aware of those problems, but may have experienced those problems for yourself and like bear the wounds of those problems. I myself stand up here today bearing some of the wounds of those problems. And so the reason we go back to these things, the reason we talk about like the fundamental, the most original definition of what this thing is, this thing that we call the church, something that we believe in and that we do, is one, to acknowledge that those problems and those anxieties are real, but also so that we can do something about them. Your school anxieties that have led you to continue to have dreams all these years later are real and valid, and you are not incapable of doing something about them now. This is according to dream experts. There's a phrase that some dream experts use that is called revolutionize a positive ending. Let me describe this for you. This is actually a process. Maybe you can find this helpful in your dreams and otherwise. So to revolutionize a positive ending means that when you have a bad dream, it might be a dream about school, or it might be a dream about losing your car or something else. When you awake from that dream, the first thing you should do is put yourself back into the setting of that dream. And then what you do when you put yourself back in the setting of that dream is try to think through what would happen if that dream ended in a better way. You're not magically going to fix it. Like you can't just go back actually dreaming and then fix it. But you put your headspace in that spot. You put your brain, which is trying to categorize and understand this shared experience, you put it back in that situation and you try to think of a better outcome for two different reasons. One, so that you can maybe set some of that anxiety around and realize, oh, my dream didn't have to end on a bad note. But then also what you're attempting to do with that is rewire your brain a little bit and start dealing with the anxiety that led you to have that dream in the first place, so that when it comes back to you being asleep, maybe you start having that dream less because the anxiety you've been dealing with and saying, this does not have to be the case. We can change the outcome and the mindset by saying, we're agents in this, and we can potentially do better going forward. You may have noticed we have a bookshelf that, if you walk out these doors, it's straight to that north side of the building. We have a bookshelf with a handful of different books there, and as we were refinishing the space 2.5 years ago, we put that out there, and we just put a bunch of books out there that we have found meaningful. Some are adult books, some are kids' books. It's not like recommended readings, but things that we have found helpful as leaders of the church, and maybe you would find helpful as well. And one of the books that I read a few years ago was by a pastor named Lillian Daniel, and her book is titled, Tired of Apologizing for a Church I Don't Belong to. Really good book. I'd tell you to go check it out now, but I had to go grab it so I could get this quote this week, and I forgot to bring it back this morning. Next week, go and check out this book because it's phenomenal. Or go buy it yourself because it's really that good. And Lillian Daniel is this progressive pastor. I think she was in Iowa, and now she oversees a bunch of churches in Michigan. But she was kind of in the same spot as we are as a new church, and trying to think through how do we engage with new people in a church setting and make it that much more positive. And she has this quote that, since I read this 2 years ago, has just stuck with me, and I could not get out of my mind thinking about this week. So here's what she says. In journalism, they teach writers never to bury the lead. The lead is the key point of the story. Begin with it, or you will lose the reader. I think about that a lot as I look at how we talk and don't talk about our faith. Back in my days of apologizing, I might never have told anyone about experiencing God in church, in worship. There was no time to talk about worship, let alone experience it. I was too busy debating, apologizing, and engaging on the head level, trying to convince people that they were open-minded about, that we were open-minded about God rather than simply open to God. I came to it honestly. My listeners encouraged me. I used to joke that we were the church most likely to be attended by the people who don't go to church. People thought that was funny, especially the people who didn't go to church. They laughed too. I don't think it's funny anymore. I think it's sad. I buried the lead. The central thing that we can do as the church is to be the church. And we have agency in that. And we can be confident in that. We can revolutionize an ulterior outcome, or whatever that quote was. We can revolutionize the ending. Like we have an opportunity to do that and to do better. And we can be confident in that because it's something that hopefully we find important and meaningful and impactful to our personal lives. So we don't have to go out there apologizing for a church that we are not. And if we're confident in ourselves, that means that we can be also confident when we come and interact with people and churches even, and religions even, that are different from our own and that we might disagree with on some fundamental things. There are churches and religion and other people even that we might disagree with on some major things. And yet, if we're confident in ourselves, we don't have to constantly have our guards up. We don't have to be constantly fighting. We can acknowledge those differences. We can look for opportunities to collaborate and work with them. And we can keep on leaning into who we are confident that we are and what we are about. So this is what we try to do as a church. It's now 4 years ago, in the midst of the pandemic in 2020, what would become Cottage Grove was nothing more than an idea in our heads. And we're in the middle of a pandemic where we're not allowed to gather with people. We weren't allowed to start this church where we're gathering people. And so at that point, we were just kind of sitting back on our Zoom screens and thinking through, what kind of church do we want to be, and how do we talk about that with other people in order to get their interest, and hopefully they'll want to be a part of it as well. So one of the things that we did during that time was myself and the other two pastors of the Grove, and then Rich Stobie. Rich Stobie's back there on the soundboard today, who's a communications guru. We met and we said, what we really need to focus on is a brand promise or a tagline. And when you hear tagline, you might be thinking like, oh, well, this is just like a fancy business communication thing where we're trying to sell people on what we do. I mean, sometimes it's that, but what we were trying to do is, we were trying to put together 5 words or less. Use 5 words or less that describe, hopefully, every time anyone comes in contact with our church, in person or online or whatever, what do we want their experience to be? And how does that describe who we are and what we do? And how does that then hand over that messaging to our people who are a part of this thing so that they can go out and talk about their church in a way where they are not saying, well, you know, we're not that kind of church. Or you don't have to worry, we're not an exclusive church that kicks out people like this or doesn't believe these types of things. We wanted to lead with the good stuff. And we wanted to be able to hand over to our people this messaging about who we are as a church and what we do as a church, leading with the good stuff, revolutionizing the ending. And so we went through this long process, and our goal was 5 words or less, and we landed on 2. What are those 2 words? Grow goodness. You all know this. We say it up front every single week. It's out there on our wall as you walk in. We put this into our people's hands in order to say, what kind of church are we? We're a church that grows goodness. Now, we have tried to work as leaders to define a little bit about what that means, and we have these 4 values, again, hanging out here in the Commons area. If you go out here and look, we have these 4 values that we say this kind of defines what we mean when we say grow goodness. But also one of the points of keeping it short and sweet and memorable was so that it could land in your laps and that you were able to say to others, as you talked about your church, as you talked about this faith community that you find valuable and meaningful and important, you were able to say, I'm a part of a church that we grow goodness, and then you describe what that means to you and how that is meaningful and impactful to you rather than us dictating it. You get to lead with the good stuff, and you get to share that with other people. So with all that in mind, one of the things that we're going to try to do every single week is we're talking about a thing that we believe or do and why that's important to us. Every single week, we're going to land with a short definition where if you had a Sunday school notebook, if you opened it up and you were to write in the definition of the thing that we're talking about every week, what's the short and sweet definition that you could walk away with? And so today, as we're thinking about what we believe and do, what is the church, this thing that we believe and do and we try to be? The church is a community of people who gather together to connect with God and others, to experience grace from God and others, and to together become the best version of ourselves. And why do we do that? To grow goodness. Now, that's a different kind of definition. That's a different kind of categorization, right, than many of you or many other people might be familiar with when they think about what is church. But hopefully, that's something that you can roll with and get on board with and be excited about and motivated by. Maybe that is a definition that can help put some of those old nightmares to bed for once. And maybe that's something that if you're excited about and motivated by, that we can also invite others into. So may that be so.
Well, this was a particularly easy Sunday to choose music for. We have so many songs that we do that really define what the church is, who our church is, what we're about, why we do this thing. And so it was almost like I had 10 songs. I was like, which one should I do? Well, actually, Elsa Austring came to me last week and said, when are we going to do Bigger Table again? And it's one that we've done a lot, so I gave it a little bit of a break, but I was like, oh man, that one would actually be perfect for today. So y'all, let's sing together one more time before we go. And if somebody, hopefully the kids will come in so Elsa can sing too. But y'all, let's rise if you're able and we'll sing. Come gather round the mystery of love in our broken history, where grace heals the fault lines in me time and time again, and welcomes me into a house for the hungry, a well for the thirsty, where all saints come together, shoulder to shoulder, a welcome for the traveler, new wine for the vineyard, and all things God is able. Love has a bigger table. Show me who is my neighbor, the Christ hidden in the baker, 'cause love doesn't need a stranger. Love calls them friend, welcomes them into a house for the hungry, a well for the thirsty, where all saints come together, shoulder to shoulder,
welcome for the traveler, new wine for the vineyard. In all things, God is able.
Love has a bigger table. There's an empty seat waiting next to me. We gotta make some room for each other. Let my enemy be my family. Fill my cup till it's running over. There's an empty seat waiting next to me. We gotta make some room for each other. Let my enemy be my family. Fill my cup till it's running over. A house for the hungry, a well for the thirsty, where all saints come together. Shelter, shelter, a welcome for the traveler, the new wine for the vineyard. In all things, God is able. Love has a bigger table. Love has a bigger table. Amen. Woo! Y'all, could you hear Elsa singing in the front row? Elsa,
That's
girl,
so
you sound
good.
good. I told them before we did that song that you reminded me we hadn't done it in a while and that we should do it. And you basically led the whole song. You didn't even need a microphone. So good job.
I hope we were able to pick her up online and hear her online, because that was fantastic, Elsa. This is one of those situations where I hate getting up here and then giving announcements and interrupting all this. I'll do them really quickly. How about that? So if you have your worship handout, we've got the back with the 3 announcements. We're actually basically going to skip the first 2. Being the Hope campaign, we technically wrapped up on Easter, but if you're still looking to contribute to that, to these organizations that we support outside of the local church, you are still able to contribute at any time, and you can do that online. Sunday school, we're in the midst of that series right now, so not a whole lot you need to know about that. But the last one is about getting involved and the different volunteer opportunities that we have here around the Grove. A couple very specific to the time of the year that we're in. One of them is this gardening project that we're looking to kick back off in the coming weeks. If you're a gardener and you want to help to contribute the gardens that we started last year, growing food that we then give to a bunch of different organizations here in Cottage Grove. Amanda is right over here. Amanda's Gardening Extraordinaire. If you want to help with that project, I'd tell you to just go straight to Amanda to talk to her about it and how you can get involved with that. The other thing also has to do with outdoors. If you have a green thumb and you like beautifying outdoor spaces, we would love to be able to do some of that in the coming weeks. So if you are interested in helping with groundskeeping type of stuff, picking up sticks, planting flowers, you were the one who brought this up.
I was going to say, even if you don't have a green thumb, because we need like some grunt work too. We need people to pull weeds and pick up sticks and stuff like that. So if you're willing to come pick a task or two and come do that, we can find a time for you to do that so our space doesn't look all scraggly in the summer.
So you could talk to the two of us afterwards, or if you want to check volunteer opportunities on the back and then drop that in the offering or in the basket back there, we can follow up with you sometime during the week. It's so good to be with you. I look out here and I think about the diversity in this congregation, the racial diversity, the gender diversity, the age diversity, the diversity of different backgrounds, even religious backgrounds. that we have brought together around this shared commitment together, and it is so moving. And so I hope that your being with us this morning helps to encourage that in you and maybe helps to bring a little bit of sunshine to you on this jury day. So you're already standing. As we go, I'll have you extend your hands to receive this blessing. This actually comes from the book of Hebrews that we have in our Bible. This is from Hebrews 10, verses 23 through 25. Let us hold unwaveringly to the hope that we confess, for the one who made the promise is trustworthy. And let us take thought of how we are to spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not abandoning our own meetings, continuing to meet together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging each other, and even more so, because you see the day is drawing near. May that be so. Amen.
What is buried, you can raise again. What is lifeless, you'll breathe life within. What seems over to you is not the end. There's nothing that you cannot do. I'm ready, God, to see you move. There's a resurrection.